Yo guys, what's up? Today I'm going to be talking about why people tune drums and how to do it, obviously. So the reason why people tune drums is kind of the fundamental idea of music theory is if everything's in the same key, it's going to play much more naturally and gelled than something that isn't. So I know not everyone's going to tune their drums, that's obvious. I mean, I've made songs in the past where I didn't even think of doing that, and they turned out just fine. So this is really just meant to be another trick that you'll keep in your tool bag of little handy-dandy production tips and whatever. You know, it's always good as producers to know as much as we can about our craft. So, and also an example is that if you're not going to be tuning your drums, you know, it's still good to know these ideas because it gave me other ideas. Like, I tuned all my drums in one song to the key of G, and I wanted the snare to pop back out, and I had transposed it 3 notes, 3 steps, and so the way I made it pop back out is I untransposed it and had it play in its original form, and it really popped the snare out from everything else that was tuned the same. And so that is kind of like a cool little idea I got from experimenting with tuning drums. Same idea again. If I want to, tuck a snare back down without, EQ or volume or compression, then, I can tune it the same as all my other drums. Okay, so that being said, I'll show you how I do this, and a good way to figure out what key your samples are in is by using a spectrum analyzer. And the cool thing about this one, well, this one's called Spectrum because it's in Ableton. You can see in the bottom left right there that it's displaying my keys. So when I play a sample by itself, the highest peak should be my root key for that sample. And I'll demonstrate that right here. So I'll just solo a snare in my drum rack. And let me untranspose it so it's playing its original form. And see that highest peak right there is at A sharp. Now, sometimes it's harder to tell with kicks because the peak could be kind of wide. And that's because lower frequencies are just wider frequencies. They don't cycle as fast as higher frequencies. Higher frequencies cycle much faster, and that's what gives it the pitch, the much higher pitch. So if the peak in the lower frequency is kind of hard to tell, if let me say is that A sharp or an A or whatever, then I'll just transpose it up 2 octaves or so, or an octave, and that should help me see the peak, the root key, much more clearly. So I just transposed the snare by 2 octaves, and as you can see, that peak is much narrower, so it's easier for me to tell what key that is. So again, that's a A sharp, and let me bring it down an octave, so back down to 12 steps. And yeah, I'm getting the same result there in A sharp. So since everything else in my drum rack is already tuned to a G, for me to turn the snare to A sharp, I would have to go down 3 steps. So 1, 2, 3 on my keyboard, that's right. And now it's in key with the rest of my drum rack. And let me just go ahead and play this by itself. The drum rack by itself, and okay, and like I was saying earlier, if I want to pop the snare out, then I'll have it detuned, or I'll have it in its original form, not tuned to the rest of my drum rack, and I'll pop it out more. But you can hear, because it's not in the same tuning as the rest of my drums, it's being popped out, and sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. I feel like right now it's a little bad, so I'm going to tune it back to the rest of my drum rack, and I should get the result of, see how that gels in, and it's really nice. So yeah, that's the idea of why people tune their drums, and this is the way I do it. I just transpose it down keys, and I use my spectrum analyzer or an analyzer just to figure out what key it is. So very easy, very cool trick. Not a lot of people do this, so this could really separate the boys from the men in production. So think about it. It's a cool trick, and thanks for watching.